Right, hello. Today I am going to show you how to do hand cut dovetails. If you want to cut dovetails, you want to test yourself, then this is the video for you. I'm going to go through it right from the start. Even if you're a complete beginner, watch to the end, and you'll be cutting dovetails like a pro with a little bit of practice. Right, so you're going to need some tools. I've laid them all out here so you can have a look at them. Freeze the frame if that's what you want to do. I could go through them all, but it's pretty boring. They're pretty basic stuff. So you need a way of marking everything out, and you need some sharp chisels. Also need a planer and a mallet and all those sorts of stuff. But take a look. While I'm going through the video, then I show you how to use all the tools and everything. It's pretty standard stuff. If you like the videos, then subscribe. Anyway, right, let's crack on. Right, what I'm showing you here is that the bits of timber that I've got were cupped. So you need to get so when you're cutting a dovetail, it's imperative that the timber that you're putting together are absolutely the same. So it's worthwhile spending the time to get the timber absolutely smack on before you start. So as you can see, it's bowed there. So get your planer on it, plane the bow out, or if you're lucky enough to have if you're looking to have a planer or whatever, a mechanical planer, then use that. But I haven't, so I just have to do it by hand. As you can see, you've got flat edge on it now, and it's absolutely smack on. So, next thing, get the ends of the timber square. I'm using a shooting board here, so I'd used a chop saw or an electric saw to get the timbers pretty square, but just check them and get them absolutely smack on, because what's going to happen is that you're going to be marking off the end of the timber. So you don't do that normally, but on this case you do, and if that's the case, then everything has to be square in both directions, so along and across. So you just the shooting board just enables you just to take very fine slithers off and just get it absolutely smack on. And when you look across it, like I'm going to do now, then you'll see that. Right, gauges. You can use a marking gauge, or you can use a pencil. Gauges are good, but the problem with the gauge is that if you use it in the wrong place, like on the outside, then you'll leave a mark. So, and you don't really want to leave a mark, because you'll end up having to plane it out or making the timber a bit thinner. So use pencil where you can. Yeah, there's not much more to say about that. Right. You need to calculate your tails. So I'm doing the tails here. So you draw out the pins. So I'm going to have four tails and 5 pins. I'm going to call the pins 5mm each, and then this calculation here just basically works out what the width of the tail is going to be. Once you've got that, then you can mark out the tails, because you already have the dovetail setter outer, whatever you call that, template. I'll remember my calculator this time as well. Right, so this is where a compass comes in handy. So if you mark, or you set the compass to a pin plus the width of a tail, then you can mark out the end of your timber, and use the compass as the size that you're looking for. So as you can see, I'm just marking out the 2 end pins, so 5mm each. And once I've done that, then I'm going to use the compass to mark out and equally space the dovetails from the width that we've already calculated. So what you'll find when you're doing dovetails is the marking out is the key to it, is to get it absolutely marked out smack on. So what you'll also see is, once I've marked out these ends, I'm going to start using a marking knife. And the reason you use a marking knife is because you avoid having the thickness of the pencil line. So if you cut the pencil line out, you just leave gaps everywhere. So you have to go, you're basically, so I was quite pleased with this, I made it absolutely smack on. So now I'm using the marking knife, and we're going to get a much more accurate mark. Right. So one of the key things to do is once you've set out the tails, is to use the gauge. This is a 1 in 8 gauge. I think that's just it's a very general sort of set for dovetails. So if you haven't got a template like this, then you can use your sliding bevel, and if you just move, if you set it as one horizontal, 8 horizontal, 1 vertical, you'll get a 1 in 8, and you set that, and that can be your angle, and then having the template means you don't have to do it. Key to this is mark out what you're cutting out. So mark your waist, and then what you can see is that is showing you what you're going to remove. So when you get your saw, when you're sawing this stuff, you're always cutting in the waist area. So you don't cut down the center of a pencil line. You cut to the edge that you're trying to remove, and then you keep everything in. And if you stick to that, you can't go wrong. That is the absolute key to this: is make sure that you remove the waste and not the things that you're trying to keep in. So anyway, here we go. So the way I cut dovetails out is I cut from one end. I cut at sort of at 45 degrees, and then I flip it round, and I cut from 45 degrees the other way, and then I cut the last little bit out horizontal. And what that does is it helps you keep the saw in line, and it means that you won't move or wave, and it will be a much more accurate cut. Really important. So I've done them all now, so that's great news. There you go, 5 cut out. Now you're going to cut out the waste, and I'm going to use a coping saw for that. So the coping saw is not the most accurate tool in the world, but so just go a little bit short of the line, and then you can finish them off with a chisel. There you go, cluck, cluck, cluck. There we go, it's all done. Right, so the next thing you want to do is you need to get these tails finished. Get yourself your chisels razor sharp. It makes a massive difference. If your chisels aren't sharp, then the timber will start to pull and rip, and it won't cut. And if that's the case, then you don't get as good as crisp a finish, and it makes the finishing harder. Right, so I've set this down on a bench, and now I've just got a 6mm chisel, and I'm just pushing with the palm of my hand because it's so thin. Then it will just cut. So I don't need to use a hammer or anything on this. So cut the shoulders out. Key to this is also you need a bevel edge chisel so you can get into the corners. So if I didn't have a bevel, I wouldn't be able to do that. So there you go, just cutting them all out. And then what I also do, and you should do this too, is only go about half or 3/4 of the way through the timber depth, because then you come from the other side. If you went all the way through, you'd break it out, and then it would just look rubbish. So remember that. Only go halfway through. Right, now get the larger. Now you're going to need to get the larger chisels and get the sides of the tails, and get those on on your marking knife line. So you'll still be able to just see it, because you won't have cut through it. You'll have left it in. You'll have just left the marking knife line in. So now when you use chisel, you can get right to it. If you leave it in, then your joints will be really tight. If you take too much out, then you'll leave gaps. So with the dovetail joint, it's a very unforgiving joint. Right. So the way I mark out the pins is I use my tails as a template, and then that way, even if you have made a slight mistake on your tails, then your pins will follow whatever you've cut. But the theory is you should have cut them very accurately already. So here you go, just get your marking knife in, just cut, and then you'll have the marks on the end. I don't know what I was doing here, but I think I was just checking the width. Anyway, right, now you've got the ends, get your square, mark off the edge, and just put all of your marks down vertical. Right, so let's cut the pins out again. Make sure that you're cutting on the waist side of the line, or the waist side of the marking line. Again, 45 degrees up. So come down the line and go across the pin end. Cut them all out, and then flick it round and do the same. 45 degrees, and then come straight down. It's simple as that. And then the saw will follow the lines that you've already cut, and as long as you check the front side and the back side, you'll follow that line, and you will cut where you want to cut. Again, coping saw, chop them all out, plop, 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 and there you go. And then do a very similar thing to what you did before. Cut the shoulders out. I'm using, just going to speed this all up for you. So as you can see, chop them all out. Do very similar to before, and then touch up the cheeks of the joints as well with a slightly wider chisel. Don't go all the way through. Flick it round and then come from the other side like I've just done there. Right. So then again, just make sure you catch all the inside, the corners, so it doesn't snag. And then the last thing that I do is I just take off the inside corner of the joint, and that just means it just sits together a little bit better, and so it'll all come together quite tightly and won't force out. It's time to knock it up. As you can see, I start it off by hand so you can get it all in square, and then finish off with a bit of timber. Use a bit of timber because then you won't dent the timber, and it makes it easier to finish it off. I've done it before, dented the timber, it means really awkward. So you're starting off finishing with a bit of a planer, plane it down, get it so you're catching everything, it's all a nice finish, a nice surface. And then once you've done that, get the sander on it. Give it a good blast with the sander. And in theory, it should look pretty good at this stage. So at this point, I hadn't even glued it up, and I was really pleased with the finish. Not many gaps, if any at all. So when you glue that up, that would finish absolutely perfect. Right, there you go. That's how you do a dovetail joint. Have fun with this. Don't expect to be perfect straight away. And if you put practice in, you'll get them absolutely smack on.